Hello, it's John, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Meals with Jesus. Some of the Kids Club groups are going to be following through some material written by Faith in Kids that is based on meals that Jesus ate with different people in Luke's Gospel. So all this term, the Younger Kids Club group that Matthew and Anna and I lead, and the girls group that Hannah leads will be looking at that material. And as well as what we'll be doing on the Kids Club Sundays, there is a book that goes along with it. Now, if you've got children in the Kids Club, you should have had a copy of this. If I've forgotten, or if you just like one for yourself, I've got some spares, so let me know and I will pop one over. But basically, this is a series of Bible studies that look at those same meals that Jesus ate with different people in Luke's Gospel. And the idea is that you can do them as a family. Now, you don't have to do them for your children to enjoy Kids Club. We're not going to assume they've done it. The material is complementary rather than you kind of need it. I don't know what the word is, but you don't need to do it. So don't panic if you don't get through it. But we've really enjoyed doing the companion book to this, or the first book in this series, called The Wonder of Easter. As a family, we're going to be studying this, and I thought I would tell you what I've learned about how to use it. So if you grab the book, if you've got a copy, and turn to page 8 and 9, you'll see a couple of intimidating charts, which are how to read the book. And basically, don't worry about page 8, because that's how to read it during Lent, which is before Easter, so a bit late. Page 9, you'll see that there's 9 weeks. And each week, apart from the last, has 4 days of Bible studies based on one of these meals. So if you look at week 1, the top column, the meal is lunch with Levi. So it's about Jesus having lunch with a guy called Levi. The theme is the joy of following. That's the joy of following Jesus. So that's the kind of big picture for that week. And then there's 4 days. And if you look, you'll see each has some letters and numbers underneath. The LK is just a shortening of the word Luke. So that stands for Luke's Gospel in the Bible. Then the number next to it is the chapter number. So if you look at day 1, Luke chapter 5, then V verses 27 to 28. So that LK5V 27 to 28 is Luke chapter 5 verses 27 to 28. Back in the day, they wrote the Bible on scrolls, so you couldn't use page numbers because it was just one page. So they divided into chapters and verses just so you could find your way around. And we've kept the same sort of thing going. So that tells you where you're going. And if you look at them, you'll see that actually the days of a week are kind of one story. So day 1, 2, 3 and 4, they're all in Luke chapter 5, and there's a couple of verses that follow on from each other. So we're reading one Bible story during the week. Okay, just to say, Kids Club is not weekly, it's fortnightly. So if you wanted to keep in tune with Kids Club, you're doing 2 a week. Just makes it a bit more achievable, because even though there's 7 days in a week, we don't seem to manage 4 studies most weeks. So that's where you're going. Now, how do you do it? There's a little bit on page 10, tells you what to expect, which is quite useful. But there's also day 1, and I'm going to run you through it. But basically, the way we do it is we do it as a family at a meal. We've done it at breakfast. I think we're going to do these ones at dinner. But at a meal works quite well. Don't have to. You could do it first thing in the morning all together. You could do it before bed, part of your bedtime routine. You can fit it in wherever you like, but choose a spot where the family is together. And we just find that if we're having a piece of toast, it helps us not to be wandering off, playing with toys, engaging in play fighting or not play fighting with your sister, that kind of thing. So we tend to do a meal. You don't have to. If you look at it, you'll see the first bit so I'm now on page 11, the first Bible study, which is called Leaving It All Behind. Where are we going today? Jesus picked a hated tax collector to become his friend. Levi left everything to follow Jesus. So that's the big picture, that's the theme. If someone has picked that up by the end of the Bible study, you're doing well. Then it says ready, and you'll see there's a thing that says optional. There's always an optional activity with these Bible studies. Sometimes you need props, and if you do, they'll be in the ready section. If there's no props in the ready section, you don't need any. It's a game you can play without props, or an activity you can do without props. But if you want to do the activity, you don't have to, but if you want to, that'll tell you any props that you need to grab before the study. Then has the Bible passage. They also print the Bible passage in the book on the next page, so we don't tend to worry about grabbing a Bible at that point because it's already in the book, and that's just easier. Can be useful to read through the study beforehand, particularly if you want to do the activity. To be honest, sometimes when we're in a rush and I've forgotten to read through it, I just pick it up, read the Bible passage and read out the questions. The lovely thing about these studies is they actually work without any preparation. They're better if you prepare, but you know, we know what family life's like. Sometimes it just goes pear-shaped, and it's great. These guys, they know what they're doing. They know families. They know it sometimes goes pear-shaped. So first thing you need to do is go into the Let's Go section. It says pray, and there's a prayer to read out. You can read that out. You get one of the kids to read that out. It's just a prayer to ask God to help us in the study. Great place to start. Then it says perhaps try, and what you've basically got in the perhaps try section is you've got the activity explained. So if you want to do the activity, you probably usually will need to have looked at this in advance. Sometimes you don't, you can just pick it up and go. When I say in advance, I mean 5 minutes is enough. You're okay, you don't need loads of time on this. But there's the activity. If you haven't got time for the activity, the last one, it always says, if you can't do this activity, ask a quick question instead. So there's a quick question to get you all thinking about the theme of the study for that day, which is fantastic. So you can do the activity if you've got time to get that sorted, if that's the sort of thing your family likes, or you can just ask the quick question. Quick question, which object is most precious to you? The point of the study is that Levi left everything to follow Jesus. It's just, what's your most precious thing? Is it a cuddly? Is it a tablet? Is it your football? Is it an item of clothing? That kind of thing. And just go around the family, ask everyone, grown-ups as well, this is for everyone, and then you'll have it. And then there's a link, and you can just read that out if you like. So in today's story, Levi left everything to follow Jesus. Imagine leaving behind your cuddly, that kind of thing. The next section is called This Week's Study, which just kind of tells you where you are in the Bible. It just orientates you in the big picture of the whole Bible. Really helpful. You can read that out. It's quite helpful. You could read it beforehand and kind of summarize it for the family, or you can just read it out. So where are we in the Bible? Jesus has begun to cause a stir. News is spreading about him. Crowds have been gathering. Now it's time for Jesus to choose a group of friends to be his disciples. Just tells you where you are. Jesus is choosing his disciples. It says, look out for what we are told about the man Jesus chooses. So it's saying just to look out for as you read the Bible passage. Then it says, read the passage. And the passage, as I said, is printed in the study every time. So if you haven't got a Bible to hand, and as I say, I tend to just use the one out of the book because it's there. And it says, after this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector named Levi sitting in the tax office. Jesus said to him, follow me. Levi got up, left everything, and followed Jesus. And then there's questions. Questions for us all, questions for 3 and 4s, questions for 5 to 7s, questions for over 7s, questions for teens. You just read out the questions and talk about them. There's no kind of getting it right, getting it wrong. It's trying to help them. Often I find I read the question out. So I might read out the question for 5 to 7s. We don't have a 3 to 4s. What did Levi take with him as he went to follow Jesus? And if I get a sort of, I'm not sure, so look back, hey, why don't we read the passage again? It's only short, read it again. And that way, if they don't know the answer to the question, the answers are usually in the passage or something you can think of. They don't need you to know lots. They know that most of us don't know loads about Jesus or Levi or the Bible. So they write the questions to help us learn. They're on our side. So what I tend to do is I read the question. If the children don't know the answer, I think, maybe it was in the passage. I'll read it again because I might not know the answer. I'll read the passage again out loud. You get one of the children to read it out loud. That's really fun as well. And you run through the questions. Start off with the questions for everyone, and then you can ask the age-appropriate ones depending on who you've got in your family. Then it says think and pray. And there's a sentence to think about and an idea for how to pray to Jesus. Now, there's not a written prayer. So it says, thank Jesus for the good things he has given you. Have you discovered what you value more than Jesus? talk to him about that. So there you might lead a prayer there, and it could just be as simple as, Lord God, thank you for all the good things you give us. Don't have to pray long prayers. There's no secret special praying language. Prayer is talking to a God who is a father who likes to listen to his children. We just ask him for things we need. We thank him. We praise him. So you can do that. You can pray. There's then a couple more sections. You see them on the last page. This is called Got Time to Chat. If you've had a really good discussion, you're doing it at a leisurely time of the day, you might want to use that to keep the conversation going, to keep discussing together the things you've been learning as a family. Really fun to do. I must say, we almost never get to that. It really is an optional extra. I don't want anyone to feel pressured, but it's there and it's useful. There's a bit something more for adults. Maybe you were really struck by something in the passage, and later that day you're thinking, that's kind of stuck with me, and you're wondering, maybe you're confused or you're excited, or just kind of it sparked off loads of thoughts. There's a bit you can read to help you think more about it. So that's really valuable, really useful. And then sometimes there's a little box, I don't know if you can see, it's got like a dotted line around it. That will be if there's something in the passage that they think, that needs a bit of background to understand it properly. Probably not essential, but you might be interested. Here is a note about tax collectors. And it tells you why back in those days, tax collectors were generally pretty bad news. They were greedy, they were working for the enemy, the Romans. They're not just people who got a job with the revenue and customs. These are people who have chosen to work against their own people for their own greed. So it just explains that actually being a tax collector back in 1st century Galilee was very different to being a tax collector in 21st century Britain. So that's why that note's there. Really helpful, really useful. As I say, the kind of gold standard would be to read through the 3 pages beforehand. Get the props for the game. That'll probably take you 10 minutes to read it, maybe, a couple of minutes, 5 minutes to get the props, and then run through the study. Everyone is smiling and engaged and nodding happily. You realise that you have just completely aced it as a parent, and your family are on board. They're learning about Jesus, and they are set up for whatever the week throws at them. Often, you pick it up. You pray the prayer, you read the passage, you ask the questions, you referee the fight, and afterwards you go, goodness, did anyone pick anything up from that? And the truth is, yes. That's the lovely thing, that as you read through the Bible with your children, they pick stuff up and they're intrigued, and they get to see what God is like, they get to see what Jesus is like, they get to see that mum and dad don't have all the answers, they get to see that we are all wanting to follow after a God who loves us, and that it's not about us and it's not about getting it right, it's about him and about his love and his forgiveness. I'd love to help you if you are wanting to read Meals with Jesus, or you're thinking that's something you'd like to do with your family, but you're stuck. Maybe I've messed up this video and you feel intimidated by the book. Maybe this is just so new to you and you're just thinking, I don't even know how to get started. Let me know. I'd like to help, because we've come to love, at times we've come to love Bible times together as a family, but we've certainly grown through them. We've grown closer to God, closer to each other, closer to those around us. So I recommend it, and let me know if you need a copy of the book. Let me know if I can help at all. Bye for now.